Well, Rodney Walker is with us today. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Doing fine.
Now, your book that you've got out now is called 5 Letters from Prison That Have Changed the World. So is it pretty much self-explanatory what the content of the book is?
Pretty much. There might be some surprises for a few. We did throw in a bonus letter. So there are actually 6 men whose letters we actually go into, but 5 of them are key history makers, and you recognize their faces.
Yeah, there's a few, probably some of the most famous people in the last 100 years or so. You've got all sorts of different people. Hitler, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi. Who would you say is the most perhaps controversial of those?
Well, definitely I would have to say Hitler.
Yeah.
Hitler. And there's no way, we don't want to put him on a pedestal in any way, but he did write a letter which changed public policy. And that's actually the thesis, is that all of these letters from these men have changed public policy in their governments. Yeah. And with the change of public policy comes a change in how other countries relate to you. So you change the world, in effect.
Yeah. Is Hitler really controversial, though? Because there isn't some sort of mass disagreement. Most people have the same view that Hitler was a bad guy.
Right. And I suppose looking at it from that point of view, I guess he's not as controversial as you would think. But just coupling him with champions of like Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr., it's kind of odd to see them lumped in the same category.
Yeah, in a way, you couldn't really get more different from some of these people.
Yeah. But it is more like a history book. It's an objective, like a history book. In fact, we're going to try to get it into our school system as supplemental reading for history.
And I suppose as well as these big names, you've got some lesser known names. Do you think that, even though they were lesser known names, of course, these letters still change the world in some way, right?
That's right. And one of which is Sun Yi. His name is Sun Yi. He was a prisoner at a Chinese labor camp. Very fascinating story. I think a documentary was done about him. Yeah. And he writes us really like a proverbial SOS, letter in a bottle, which makes its way out of China and finds its way in the United States. And it's like a cry for help. Please take this to the human rights organizations. And then it goes down from there. But he describes a lot of abuse and how he hung on, and just a lot of injustice towards him.
Would you say he's the least known of the people in the book?
I would say Sun Yi, yes. He's the least known, and he mysteriously dies after he's released, which is another thing. But there is a kind of a spiritual movement in China called Falun Gong, and growing in popularity, and he was part of it. And evidently the powers that be see that as a threat, or saw it as a threat, and they try to oppress it.
Yeah. I didn't actually realize Hitler was in prison. Whenabouts was that?
Well, he had tried to overthrow the government. His push, the famous push he orchestrated. And he was actually working for the government and spying out on some grassroots movements. And these beer hall movements, organizations or these events, he actually went and then he started to buy into what he had heard. And this was right after World War I. And then he becomes the speaker for what becomes the Nazi Party. But then he gets put in jail for organizing this push, this attempt to overthrow the government. And then that's where he sits down and starts writing these letters. It gets very popular, and Mein Kampf becomes a bestseller. It got him about $1 million.
And the thing about Hitler is he did all these terrible things, but he did do one really good thing. You know what that was? He killed Hitler.
That's right. That's right. He got rid of himself.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what? And I always thought, unlike a Napoleon, Hitler is always going to be a contemporary figure, because evil is always contemporary.
Yeah.
As long as there's evil, there will be a throwback, or at least we're cognizantly aware of that man.
Yeah.
And so it's good to know, so we can recognize any other types of Hitler coming on the scene.
Yeah, he's always the benchmark, isn't he, really? Whenever somebody does something bad, he's compared to Hitler in some way.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
But the more I learned about him, it's just incredible the things that they actually put together in their foreign and domestic policies.
Yeah.
The Nuremberg laws, the racial laws, things like that. Just incredible.
Yeah. And another one of these these lesser known guys is Paul of Tarsus. Just tell us a little bit about him and his letter.
Right. Paul of Tarsus. Well, he's actually Paul of Tarsus. We may know him in the church as the Apostle Paul, who wrote the letter to the Colossians, the early church. And some people, think religion is in its own category and it's kind of mythical, but it's a primary source. You see, I have a picture of the papyrus letter, and he writes from prison and says, "Remember my chains." And he's trying to help the early Christian church stay pure from all kinds of different ideologies and philosophies entering to the church, because they don't have a Bible, they don't have scripture, and so there's a risk that they're going to be sort of hoodwinked by all these new philosophies coming in, like Greek philosophy. So he's very, very clear about who Jesus is, how we live the Christian life, but he reminds them, I'm in chains here, before he's beheaded by Nero, in fact. So yes, it's a good letter. It's a very passionate letter.
Yes, absolutely. And have you dedicated this book to anyone, by the way?
I'm a teacher, and I teach I teach U.S. history at a school, an inner city school, and a lot of the boys there, they're fatherless, and you profile the guys, and they may have a better chance of ending up in prison than actually graduating from college if you look at the data. And so I've had students talk about reuniting with family members in prison, and so it's a real I kind of dedicate it to them. I'm very thoughtful about what's going on, and the young people in high school who don't have a lot of hope, who don't have high expectations, and who are aware that prison may be more it's not an option, but that may just be where they're going because of the life that they live.
And do you have plans for maybe more books after this one, and maybe just other projects that aren't books?
Well, yes, I do. In fact, I mean, I always have books in my mind. I have one after this one. We're going to try to get some made into a movie. One of my earlier books, called Mr. Gunderson's Home Economics. There's a big publisher looking to buy it, and we want to make sure everything's square. But we do think that prior book, Mr. Gunderson's Home Economics, will make a great film. A great like a Netflix or something like that. And then there's Destiny's Spear. That was my first book about the spear of destiny. That was the spear used to pierce the side of Jesus, and Hitler actually got that spear. And General Patton took it from him. These are true stories. But they're fun doing, but they've got significance even today, and I'd like to see them made into movies if I could.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where can we check out this current book, 5 Letters from Prison That Changed the World?
Well, you can get that on Amazon. You can get it right. I just had a meeting a couple days ago. You can get it on Amazon. They were in South Africa. I know in Britain you can get it there, and I don't know about Foyle's bookstore. You have Foyle's, right? The big London bookstore. They may have it. You may be able to order it through them, but it is available right now on Amazon.
Yes, great. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you. I look forward to talking with you again.